contained some deposits, and so he was picked up this morning. So he is currently also, he's undergoing further interrogation. Koforidua, he's the Koforidua director, then Prince Agbof Ewuku, a district director, and Jacob Yorsin, management information systems administrator in the northern region. We will also file charges against the following persons who are vendors on the marketplace on the central management system of the NSA in the Eastern, Greater Accra, and Ashanti regions. Isaac Osei Asamani, the owner of Stalwart Option Buy Ventures. Charles Ohomini, the owner of GH OHEC Ventures. Philomena Arthur, the owner of Brainwave Ventures. Rose Hamilton, the owner of Marine Ventures. Kweku Opare Agbofa, the owner of Franlisa Ventures. Solomon Jamina, the owner of Afarita Ventures. Haruna Mawulaya, the owner of Alfaida Enterprise. Sylvia Ntriwa Opare, the owner of Silsona Ventures. Then Peter Mensah, a legal practitioner and the husband of Gifty Oware-Mensah. We have made the decision to enter into non-prosecution agreements with some
Why are we playing it? Can you cut it? It doesn't work. Sorry about that. So you're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Apologies for the obvious difficulties with that particular sound from the Attorney General. And I want to do a quick thing and show you a few of the things that have happened in the course. And then Suleimana will be speaking to us. So we have a slide that shows, that gives you a picture that summarizes what the Attorney General has done, and particularly because his sound was not the best, I'll take you through that. So as we have indicated, there are about 12 individuals under investigations and for prosecution. That is NSA directors and staff. Then you have 9 vendors who are involved. So here are some of the pictures, the names that you can put to some of the people involved. And these were the sort of the key staff, with the exception of Peter Mensah, a legal practitioner who is husband to Gifty Oware, who is a former deputy executive director. Mustafa Yusuf, he's issued a statement, we'll show that with you. And then Osei Sibe Entry, who was at the helm of affairs. They are all indicted by the Attorney General. And the amounts involve 548.3 million Ghana cedis. That is what is involved. And the ghost names involved are almost 82,000 persons involved in the ghost names matters. Okay. I think I can pause here and get to Suleimana Brahma, the Media Foundation for West Africa, whose investigative project, that is the Fourth Estate, blew the whistle on the ghost names. You must feel some vindication or feel happy that work is being done on your journalistic, product.
Absolutely, Samson. I think that the Fourth Estate project was set up at the foundation essentially to do this kind of work, where the interest of the public is served through journalistic works. And I think since the start of the project in 2021, a number of very important and impactful stories have been made. This is not the first. If you recall the SML, the whole SML thing, was started by the Fourth Estate and all of that. But this particular story, I should say the developments are quite fulfilling for a number of reasons, because we went through a lot of troubles. At the last minute when we were ready to bring it out, we had a judge who thought that it was right to issue a pre-publication injunction to essentially say, stop, don't publish what you intend to publish.
It was an ex parte injunction.
Yes,
it was sticking on your blind side.
Yes, on our blind side. And then we had to then ask ourselves, what can we do? Well, if a court says we shouldn't publish, we cannot publish, let's send our petition, first of all, to the OSP. And then when ORA was also set up, we said, let's send it there. And we thought we needed to do this because what we had discovered was so scandalous. I think that in the end, the amounts that would be involved perhaps would be more than what the Attorney General at this stage has even discovered. Because there are certain persons that, from our investigations, we knew that were deeply involved in this whole process. But of course, there are two people who are not named. We don't know who they are. But if it turns out not to be those people, for example, then it means there are a lot of people who must be brought to book on this particular matter. And what is also fulfilling for me, Samson, I should say that, but for the work we did, nobody would even suspect that there was anything happening at the National Service Authority. Nobody would have had a clue that something could be happening, so let's investigate. Because the thing was very well orchestrated in such a way that unless you had people who were familiar with the situation willing to cooperate, there's no way, because this is a technology that has been developed. Dr. Bawumia is told, as a result of this technology, we are blocking ghost names. As a result of this technology, if you don't have a Ghana card, you cannot enroll as a national service person. And once you have a Ghana card as Samson Ayenini, your thumbprint and everything, it's not only the Ghana card that serves as evidence, but that once we take it, we actually match it with your records at NIA, because there is that agreement between NSA or NSS then and the NIA. So once we put in your card, if your card doesn't match with the records at NIA, it means that you cannot enroll. But we end up discovering that people were actually using just paper ID cards. National Fire Service ID card, work ID card, like my Joy FM ID card, to get enrolled. Which means that the system, as we were being told, is a robust system. People had their own ways of going behind it. And in the end, having thousands and thousands and thousands of people, enrolled. You take a university like UDS, and you have people giving different index number patterns. Every university has an index number pattern. So if you go to University of Ghana, they'll say, well, we use absolute figures. So 10, 11, 44, 99, or blah, blah, blah. But you would find somebody, maybe University of Ghana, and University of Ghana, for some strange reasons, was not part of the schools that they were using. It's UDS, Winneba, and UDS, the various campuses. So eventually UDS Tamale, for example, now comes to say that, look, the numbers you have put out there are certainly not UDS numbers, so please, the Fourth Estate, take our names out. And we say, no, it's not. The numbers are not created by us. This is what National Service say, You brought. And then you have a situation where one person, I've forgotten the name, is enrolled like 226 times, the same name, the same ID, the same course, completed the same year.
You found people who were how many years old?
80 years, 90 years, enrolled for national service. People who were, Kenyans. A Kenyan sitting somewhere, in his company, doing his work, doesn't know that his picture is being used to enroll for national service here in Ghana. You had ID cards that had a man's face and the name is a woman's face. You had ID card with a different date of birth, and then on the system, it's a different date of birth. But this was something that you certainly cannot have access to. And so when we started, I think they just brushed us aside. No, these people, what are they doing? They don't know what they are doing. Eventually, there were calls, oh, can you come and have a conversation? Once we take you through our system, you realize that what you are doing is just junky work. You basically will not be wasting your time. And after we even, went through the process, eventually the court injunction was over and we did a publication. We had some former executives of the NSA going around various media houses, blowing horns and basically, basically condemning the work we did as being nothing. And I'm surprised, and I'm sure today they will be very, very ashamed of themselves, with the process so far and where we've gotten to. In fact, we had an occasion where somebody even wrote, for PR purposes, demanding retraction and apology. That what we have done is a bogus thing. We should immediately retract and render an unqualified apology. Quite strangely, that the letter was intended, we never received the letter up to today. Meanwhile, it was uttered by lawyers so essentially it was a PR thing. And as we said, it didn't start. It was not a one-year event. Quite clearly, as we indicated during the publication, 2017, 2018. From our analysis, the first year we realized literally nothing happened. But beyond that, all the way till the worst year was 2020, 2022, 2023. And as the AG pointed out yesterday, that year alone, almost 350 million cedis was lost to ghost names. And we had regional directors who were complaining during management meetings, saying that, DG, I realized that in my region, every month before I authorize approvals, when I go onto the dashboard, I realize that thousands of people have already been pre-approved as service persons in my region. But per the mechanism we are operating, as a regional director, I'm the one who is supposed to give the final authorization after going through the validation to establish that this number of persons are within my region and are rendering national service. But before I come, pre-approvals have already been given. So I don't know what is happening. And in that meeting, what we are told is we will look into it. And nothing happens. It continued all the way until, these discoveries were made. And then they started to fidget with the system here and there. But by then, the damage had been caused, evidence had been picked, and so on. What for me is quite strange is something is that, if I'm not mistaken, the National Service Authority is still using the same metric app that allowed for this scandal to happen. And it's quite strange. It's really strange that the National Service Authority under a new leadership would decide that it is the same metric app that was used for this scandalous exercise, used for this vendor system. And for the benefit of our listeners, the vendor system was basically that, let's get some people to be suppliers of appliances to national service persons. So companies can come and register. So the national service persons can go for items on high purchase. And that was the scheme that was being used. So at the end of the month, deductions are made to certain, against certain names.
I've been speaking to them, and it does appear that the accusations and allegations against the individual persons, particularly Gifty Oware, about some 30 million for guarantee or pick a loan, may have been an issue of these high purchase processes, and that they did not actually do so. But of course, this matter will get to the courtroom. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Because as I understand, like teachers, like various associations and organizations, sometimes people come with products to say, we want to give your people this, but we want you to guarantee that you will ensure that you deduct their salaries, or allowances to pay us. And they, as I understand, simply wrote to introduce this, is it Bulk Life company without more. And now they are being said that they have done one wrong or the other. Yeah, so Sule, did you know that this was the extent of money involved when you blew the whistle?
No, we thought it could even be more than what we are told it is now, the 500 million. Looking at the numbers that we established to be ghost names, we thought that it could be more, because if you are looking at the current service allowance of, I think, 715 Ghana cedis, for example, what it means is that if you have about 40,000 or 50,000, or let us just use the example of what happened in January, after the finance minister said, look, given what is happening, let us do a head count before we decide to release money for payment. And what did they discover? A difference of 81,000. So multiply 715 by 81,000. And what do you get? And that's for every month. And then we are talking about years. So 5, 6, 7 years. So in our estimation, it was going to be more. And like I said from the beginning, I believe that in the end, the Attorney General may discover that the amount of money that may have been lost to the ghost name scandal will be more than the 548 that they have established now. So for me, it's quite gratifying. My desire, or our desire, is not to put people in trouble, but to protect the public purse. And I think that as a country that wants to reset, certainly these things must happen. If you look at the 81,000 difference, for example, we're going to be losing about 57 million cedis every month, but for the headcount. And as I said, if we hadn't done this, I don't think that the government would have suspected that there could be anything wrong with National Service or any, bloating of numbers at National Service. And government would have been dishing out some 57 million cedis every month.
Okay. This came rather fast, as in results for you, right? Because you have a number of these investigations that you have been doing at the Fourth Estate, but there's not sufficient attention to them. Manasseh, who has been the first editor-in-chief of the Fourth Estate, his campaign against the obnoxious and clearly criminal Zoom Lion contracts,
the presidency has
just after how many years? Almost how many years? So many years now.
Been doing this for
just got the results, right?
Yes, I think. Well, on the Manasseh resilience, persistence, and consistency, and the results that has happened, I think I can only attribute that to the change in leadership of our country. When we have a new leader who has decided to listen for once and to look into the matter, and I think that is really.
So you are positive about expecting results?
Well, every new government tend to act correctly. I think when the Akufo-Addo government took over, the very first 6 months or so were all positive. That's when Dr. Bawumia, for example, talked about the CD having been, the dollar having been arrested, the keys handed over to IGP, and so on and so forth. And so I think that the experience has been, the beginning of every government tends to be so positive. They want to right the wrongs that they inherit. Okay. We can only look forward to what will happen in the coming years. But let me, on that basis, say that we are also witnessing a lot of the bad deals that happened continuing to happen in a number of agencies. And these are based on some of the investigations that we are doing. And we are wondering why the current leadership would see this and would allow it to continue. Because in some instances, we've seen things that were being done all the way to the end of 2024 haven't continued into the first quarter of 2025. And we would say these are so obvious that the new leadership cannot say that they haven't seen this. And I don't want to mention names of institutions, but eventually I think that when we begin to do the publications, people would wonder why the new authorities or new heads of certain institutions would allow certain corrupt deals to continue. We would only want to pray and hope that President Mahama and this government would act not just on this one, but some of the things. For example, the free Wi-Fi contract is another scandalous thing where we're paying millions of cedis every month to certain companies and certain institutions supposedly for the delivery of Wi-Fi services to our secondary schools, when these things were non-existent.
Yes, but these, as we understand, because they are matters for the court, remain allegations for now.
Yes.
Until they are proven.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm saying that it is important for the AG to look into all that. I don't think that the free Wi-Fi story, for example, is in court. It is something that can be looked into, and if the evidence is worthy enough, the people behind it should be brought to book.
Okay.
My turn?
No, hold on. Hi, Mary. Hello, Mary.
Samson, I'm here.
From where you sit at Transparency International, what do you have to say? Again, people are raising issues with the Attorney General for holding these press briefings, which appear to be sort of an overreach, or which appear to prejudice the matters that they are dealing with.
Samson, I do not think so at all. What he has done has not in any way indicted anybody. He says he has been able to establish some prima facie of sort, and so he wants to pursue this agenda. And for you and I, you know that the fight against corruption is a matter of perceptions and experiences. And so in this case, I don't want to go back to all the chronicling Sule has done, but in this case, you realize that there has been a lot that has been done to produce evidence. On the issue of culpability or not, the courts would then adjudicate to determine that. But the people of Ghana who brought the NDC government back to power are expecting that per the oral agenda and also others that they put in place to fight corruption, we would see results. The president promised us so. So what the Attorney General is doing is to just update us on the operationalization of the oral agenda. So there is nothing wrong at all. And let me add here again that in the way the Attorney General is going, Samson, we are going to, if it continues and we see a lot more action into the future, we are going to be doing well in various indices, I can assure you, perhaps not this year, but going into the future. Because we are building trust of the citizen that when government speaks, and in this case, I mean the executive, the legislature, and judiciary, all putting action to the commitments and the promises they have made. When they speak, it just does not remain as rhetoric, and they do not rebuff us when we come to then create or also profess some of the great ideas that we put together as our researches, as our investigative pieces, working together as civil society and also as citizens. They are working on them. Then trust will be built. Then the people of Ghana would also then reflect these in some of the researches we carry out, either by international experts responding to them when it comes to the CPI, academics and private sector, or the citizens themselves speaking to this fact. For me individually, I believe that the optics thus far have been very good from the president and also the Attorney General. And I hope that, like Sule said, usually during the first year of a new government, we tend to see a lot of this good faith being displayed. However, as we go on, then they become defensive. They tend to want to also support their members and do things that are in the contrary. I believe that in this case, we should see a president who wishes to leave a legacy for the people of Ghana, remaining on this course that he is charting, and getting all those who are behind him to support. And I'm very sure if the Attorney General keeps this up, and also the SP who has been doing some of these in the past, we would see people of Ghana wholeheartedly following and supporting this agenda. And I believe we would make some gains. It would then be in the hands or in the mouth of the judges to determine whether those people are guilty or not.
The Attorney General has said at this presser that some of the people have approached for plea bargain, so they are taking the money back. They are not going to prosecute them. Some of them too, they are going to use them as prosecution witnesses. So they have a non-prosecution agreement with some of these people. There are members of society who are not happy about that, that if people have done wrong, prosecute them, rather than say, come and bring money back and I let you go. What do you say about that?
Something that is true. As much as that is true, across the globe, and also Ghana not being an exception, we have seen increasingly that the issue of plea bargaining has come to stay. And for us in Ghana, I believe that I personally would want to see everyone who is guilty or complicit being dealt with. But then sometimes these issues, you realize perhaps looking at the merit of the various cases, perhaps you would not have a lot to get from most of those who are also part of these schemes. And so if you get them to then establish fundamentally and add evidence to these cases to get the very big ones who are very guilty to get to be punished for their wrongs, then it is a good thing. It's a win-win situation, and it's not just in Ghana or perhaps for this Attorney General. I remember in the past government, which was just booted out, there was something like that when it came to the issue of the banking, where at Oware-Mensah there was something like that, but then he reneged on the promise and was subsequently taken to prison. So it's not new. It's happened across regimes. It's happened across the globe, and increasingly it's become one of the approaches to the delivery of justice. Let's get back our monies, and then we see how it goes. And if you remember, the Attorney General also indicated that in some of the instances, others also came. But looking at the merits of the cases and what they were presenting, they thought those were not enough, and they declined those. So it means that it's not in every case they are picking plea bargains. Okay. And if you listen to the SP as well, in the past, he's also very much amenable to the issue around this approach of ensuring that we get back our monies, recover the loot, recover assets, and then we pursue the agenda of anti-corruption going forward.
Right. For the special prosecutor, they have a specific provision in their act that says that they should do recoveries, but it should apply to everybody else. And we have also elevated the plea bargain regime by passing a law in 2022, led by Godfrey Dame, to amend a portion of our Criminal and Other Offences Procedure Act at 30 to give room for all of this. I participated in the NSS scandal in 2015, 2016, and we used a different law to do plea bargain for some of our clients. Now, Justice, two non-lawyers have spoken, and I want to bring you in a bit to see this.
I thought you were going
first
for the politician.
No, I'll come to the two of you. I'll come to the two of you. First, the issues that are being raised about going to the press and talking about the cases you are filing. The last time I had to say here, as part of my research for my show, that in the US, the DA's offices, they do these things. But of course, they do it with ethical considerations. And so before I came on today, I had to go check again. And I checked recent example, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg held press briefings on high-profile cases, including the indictment of former President Trump in 2023. He discussed the legal proceedings and broader justice initiatives in interviews, reflecting on the public scrutiny surrounding such cases. I've checked elsewhere, other jurisdictions. They do almost the same thing. I've done a list from Los Angeles, Fulton, Cook County, and other places where they do this. Do you share the view of others that the Attorney General should not be doing this thing that the SP2 has been doing? They shouldn't be doing because it's prejudicial. Then Mary also speaks about the fact that when it gets into the court, it's left these two people. It's become the judges and their job. What they do with them, that is not the business of these other people. Justice Amadou Tanko, just this week, was speaking and said the judiciary has a role in the extractive sector. And he said that judges must act as custodians of legal accountability. They are the stewards of justice, where community rights, state interests, and private interests intersect. He says that the judiciary has a responsibility to safeguard land and mineral resources and so on and so forth. This was at a training that he was saying. Balance the two so that in the end people don't get disappointed. When people are discharged, then they say, oh, the judges have left them.
Yes, Samson, I think the splits or different opinions are generally arising because, one, this approach is relatively new to us as a country, relatively new. Just as you mentioned, in the US, this is common practice. Other jurisdictions also have same. Unfortunately, I think we are where we are just because of the way Oware itself started. The footprints were more of a political activity because it was part of the campaign and, party functionaries, everybody was on. And then we get to a point where we are looking at the issues proper, where...
Free SHS was a political activity.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's the way it started. Then we are at the point where we need to look at the core issues. The evidences available, the investigations, what the findings are looking like, the potential charges that can be slapped on the alleged persons, and then, of course, what will actually happen in courts. So I see it this way, that we started off with the political foot, but we are now actually getting into the legalities proper. And if you look at what the AG did yesterday, I think it was a big improvement on the previous one. He's also very convinced in his mind that, look, these are things that are done elsewhere. And for him, once he's in office, he wants to pursue it and make sure that as much as possible, some level of information is shared with the general population. But one thing I liked about yesterday was he kept saying that these are allegations. These are alleged, culprits. And that charges in the realm of conspiracy to steal, stealing, and all of those things are the bits that are actually going to be presented to the court. So I think that, honestly, this fight against corruption is one that sometimes there has to be a bit of sunlight shown on everything that is happening. Sometimes information will have to be given for the population to also get abreast with some of the things that have happened. Because, you see, the mere fact that we know that NSA, these activities are happening there, it will put a lot more people on their toes now. Because in 2015, 16, 17, you were part of the things that happened there in terms of defending some of the people involved and all that. And fast forward, from 17 to 2025, same NSA. It's just that it's transitioning from NSS to NSA. The issues are still hovering around them. But I can tell you, with what is happening now, whoever is there now will have to be very careful in the approach to things. But I think that the two key words, probity and accountability, which used to be part of our general lingua as a country, somewhere along the line, we all lost the values in there.
Actually, the NDC's motto.
Well, it started with PNDC.
Yeah.
So we all lost the values.
It's in our constitution.
Yes, it's in our constitution.
It's in our
yes.
preamble.
You see, we all lost the values in there. And I think that these are some of the things that gradually will bring that to the fore. And we should get to a point where I believe if we really want to fight corruption and corruption-related activities, some of these activities should become formalities and well ingrained in our structures of governance. So that when anybody is put in office, whether it's a political angle, whether it's a technocrat, whether you're a bureaucrat, or even a private person, an artificial legal entity dealing with entities of state or appointees of state, who are the custodians of our resources, you'll be very mindful that one day you'll be called to account. And if we could even end up enshrining some of these things in law, such that every appointee or every government machinery activity, you know that periodically some of these investigations will be conducted and people who may have fallen foul will be actually punished properly. But in all this, I think the ultimate is that we should ensure that these activities are conducted under the ambit of proper rule of law.
As in the prosecution processes,
yes,
of course.
We should not entangle these activities with the political ones that we usually do. Let the courts do their work properly. Let the judges, the lawyers, and all persons involved do their work properly. As we were taught in school, the AG himself should also be mindful in the sense that the AG is there representing fairness and justice. His core duty is not to ensure that somebody is sent to jail, but to ensure that fairness and justice prevails. And if at the end of the proceedings, the judges decide that you have to go to jail, he would have done his work.
All right.
So let's take the political angle off and make sure that we enshrine this in the rule of law.
Thank you. So Oware-Mensah, so there's something that caught my interest when the Attorney General was speaking. Some 8.25 million Ghana cedis was said to have been paid into an Eastwish account linked to the former director of SESIBE entry in 2023. Then they conducted a search, and this Eastwish card was found in his house. So I asked myself, okay, obviously the reason people get worried when there are search warrants being taken to their homes, and now there are complaints that they are searching fridges. So that may be an issue. What do you say?
Well, I guess that if these things are done in accordance with law, I really don't have any difficulty with it. And I must state from the very outset that I think that the Fourth Estate ought to be commended for the work that they did in exposing the alleged rot at the National Service Authority and for the investigations that have been conducted so far by the Attorney General and the state security agencies. I don't think that as public officers, we necessarily ought to shy away from accountability. It is part of the work that we do.
Can you hold on for a second for me? The Member of Parliament for Yaba Kubori constituency, the Honorable Mustafa Yusuf, has issued a statement, and he says that my attention has come to a press conference by Attorney General held on June 13, 2025, and I wish to categorically deny any alleged wrongdoing. That said, it is my fervent belief that once you hold public office, you should at all material times and at whatever cost be ready, willing, and able to account for your stewardship. Therefore, I wish to state that I am ready, willing, and able to account for my stewardship at the National Service Scheme from February 2017 to January 6, 2021. Consequently, I welcome any opportunity to do so, including but not limited to having my day in a court of competent jurisdiction. I therefore urge all well wishers, friends, family, constituents, members of the New Patriotic Party, and the general public to be calm, knowing very well that I have, throughout my public life, served with diligence and honesty. Signed, Mustafa Yusuf, MP.
Yes, I've seen that statement, and I'm glad that he's come out to put a statement like this out there in the public domain. But like I was saying, I had the privilege of serving in the Akufo-Addo administration. I think it was a government made of good men, well-intentioned, came with a clear objective of serving our country. But I recognize that in every house there's a Mensah. And so you may find bad nuts in government. And so if an investigation is conducted and people are found to have misconducted themselves, then they ought to face the music, as it were. For me, this exercise allows you to do two things, right? That people who have actually committed an offense are held accountable, and those who may not be found culpable have the opportunity to clear their name. And so that's why I'm excited that Mustafa has come out to issue a statement. Ultimately, he will have his day in court, and wherever the chips will fall, we know what the rules are.
You're a gentleman. That's a statemanly comment you have made. Statement you have made right now.
The Attorney General has to establish beyond all reasonable doubt that these offenses have indeed been committed. I've been in government before. I know the kinds of allegations that have been made against my person. In fact, in transactions that bore a semblance to my name, was attributed to my person as being the owner of that transaction. I make reference to Ejapa. This was a transaction that the government of Ghana had undertaken pursuant to an act of parliament. Okay, setting up the gold royalties company to do that.
It will take very ignorant
collateralization.
people, very ignorant people to personalize that,
they said that,
because there was no basis to do that. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's good when an investigation is conducted and I get the opportunity to respond. So far, I've not been called. So maybe the government of the day recognizes that some of these things were just propaganda.
And the minister under whom you were deputy in energy,
yes,
Matthew Poku Prempeh,
yes,
he's come public to say he's been attending to
indeed I've been attending
invitations,
with him as
and he's gone through all these processes without any noise.
Yes, I'm personally involved in the matters that he's been investigated on.
Okay,
one of his counsel, and I've attended upon the National Intelligence or Investigations Bureau on many occasions. We were there last Thursday. Since he himself has come out to speak to it, I don't think that it will be out of place for me to confirm that indeed that was the case. And we will go to
the Attorney General has come out to say, yes, he's been doing that, and it's possible that in the end, nothing may be found against him, and he will walk. So when you contrast that with the others, Oforiatta, Wontumi, and the whole party and everybody, Koka,
see,
what is that?
I said something earlier. If you do it in accordance with law, I'm not sure that people would rise up in the manner that they have with respect to Ken Oforiatta and Wontumi. You saw the circumstances under which Wontumi was arrested. He had actually been invited to the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service. He'd been granted bail. And then on his way home, you undertake a Rambo-style arrest. And
that's a different law enforcement, and they are entitled to arrest him. What's wrong?
That's what I'm saying, that it's the way and manner that you do it, that would generate the kind of response that you get from party people.
Yeah, but like you said in Opoku Prempeh's case, they invite him, he goes. They invite him, he goes. But in these people, there have been invitations, and the response has not been the best. So they arrest.
I'm not so sure Wontumi resisted or refused to attend any investigation.
Yeah, they tell us it took a long time.
I'm not so sure. We saw the letters that his lawyers had written. Okay, it was made public that they had invited him, and he had indicated that he was going to come.
Was there really a Rambo-style arrest?
But it was said in Parliament.
It was there. Like, where's the evidence? That's why I'm asking. Was there a Rambo-style?
Okay.
I mean, sometimes.
And so to that extent,
out there that are not.
Fine. Yeah. Okay. Now, DAs in other jurisdictions holding press conferences, engaging the media with respect to matters that they are investigating or they are prosecuting. As usual, I saw the Donald Trump, we saw the PDD one, and the Epstein ones, and all that. We see it on international media. But the context is important. Okay, these are Donald Trump. I'm not sure the DA engaged the media when the bill of indictment had not been filed. They had actually gone ahead to file a bill of indictment in court and then engage the media to speak about it. But in this case, I'm not so sure that's what is happening. Okay, I think that yesterday's press conference, beyond the substantive issues that were raised in there, was purely political, intended to divert attention from the nurses' strike. Of course, at the time that they programmed, they had no clue that the nurses and midwives were going to call off their strike by the time they finished their press conference. I'm not so sure they would have held it. And why do I say so? The Attorney General held a press conference on the 30th of April and said to the people of Ghana that AG to file criminal charges in SkyTrain NSS ghost name scandals next week. Relative to the NSS specifically, this is what he said. Additionally, he indicated that the investigations into the NSS scheme, ghost names, have progressed steadily. We will file charges against some of the persons involved from the first week of May, he confirmed. 6 weeks down the line, 6 weeks down the line, he comes to hold another press conference and tells us that he will now file charges from 1st of July. So what was the purpose of the press conference? What was the purpose? It was purely to divert attention.
Okay.
And to take away the recklessness with which the government was managing the nursing situation. That was creating needless death of Ghanaians. Otherwise, I fail to see how the Attorney General, who made those commitments as far back as 6 weeks ago, comes to hold a press conference
instead of going directly to file
the same matters that he had mentioned over and over and over. In fact, in March, he mentioned these same matters and comes to tell us that now he's now going to file the criminal charges.
The only difference is that in those press conferences, he will single out a particular matter and give detail. And NSS, he didn't give detail until yesterday, right? Are
you denying that he held this press conference? And
no, not at all.
This is My Joy Online, your own platform.
Correct.
And he said that we're going to charge the NSS people.
You're right.
In the first week of May. Where are we today? And what did he tell us yesterday?
We should be asking that question. What happened?
So you see, that's what raises the issue of all this media, circles, if you like, that the AG is engaging in these matters. When people are culpable, you conduct your investigation in the quiet like he's doing in some cases, rightfully so. And when you are ready to prosecute, you proceed to court, file your charges. If at that point you want to inform the people of Ghana that this is a step that I've taken following the investigations that I've conducted, what's the big deal? After all, people are entitled to know. Don't have any difficulty with transparency. But to tell us one thing on one occasion, commit to do a certain act post that, you don't do it, and then subsequently come when a matter of public interest is brewing.
Thank you. Now let's come
and tell us that it's only in July that you are going to proceed. And indeed, if you permit me.
Wait, because you really want to talk about the next issue, I want us to save time so you can speak about it.
Very well.
Thank you. So facts. Yeah. Evans will always say, keeping them honest. Yeah. So in the briefings that the district attorneys do, some are actually done ahead of the prosecution. They are done during the investigations. So it's not always the case that they file charges before they do them. And in the US, they say that when prosecutors provide, they do general information about the charges, the legal basis, and the procedural steps to maintain public confidence in the justice system.
This whole thing, or this case, falls under the broader umbrella of oral. And oral, as you may know, I wouldn't call it political. I'll say public interest. Yeah, it's more public interest than political.
Subject to law and all the legal
issues
and
because,
ethical considerations.
We can't take, the president cannot sit in the Jubilee House and say, I'm taking A to jail because he or she has done X wrong. So that depoliticizes the aspect of oral. And given this, where it was birthed was a manifesto promise. We went to Winneba, we spoke to the whole world that this is what we're going to do as a political party if we were given the mandate as a government, which alhamdulillah, we are in government. We are trying to ensure that the right thing is done. So having this case under oral, which is a public interest case, it is only right for an attorney general to update the public. Just test the pulse of the public with how eager they want to have updates, even on oral. Apart from the transparency dimension of it and the public interest of it, it's more heightened than ever before.
What are you going to do if you fail to secure conviction for these people in court?
We haven't gotten there because we say we have an oral.
So you have to be cautious.
Yeah, so part of being cautious is what? Having these presses. They're very important. Because, Ayini, my elder brother, Dr. Dominic Ayini, we know it's an astute lawyer. He understands all of these games, right? He understands who is alleged to have done something wrong or who is guilty whatsoever before putting it out there. And in all of what he's been doing, he's not accused anyone of any wrongdoing. He's only spelling out and giving a chronology of if...
he doesn't have to accuse anybody.
Yes, so I'm coming to that. Yeah. So you mentioned...
if you tell me that somebody 8 point something million
yes.
got, sent to him through Eastwich, and then you did a search in his home, and you found the Eastwich, the card under his bed.
Well, you are speaking.
Do I need you to tell me that you are accusing the person of anything?
Yeah, but it takes such press conferences for you to have a full appreciation of what you are telling us now in studio.
Okay.
So thanks
that was not him. That was from the AG.
No, but that's from the AG. And that's a press conference. So that's saying that it took that press conference for him to have full appreciation of what he's sharing with us in studio, right? And that is part of the transparency process and also the roadmap leading to oral and also having justice being done. Samson, language is very chaotic, right? Especially so when it becomes a matter of public interest. If we take ourselves back to maybe probably criminal history, you would realize that there was this famous case of Derek Bentley. It was on joint enterprise, right, where Derek and his accomplice, Chris, went about trying to have a burglary issue. And in the act of it, Derek was deemed as 19 years old but had the brain of a 10-year-old. And in the process of it, a police officer emerged and asked for the gun. And what he said was, what Bentley told Chris was that, Chris, give it to him. Chris, give it to him. The interpretation of give it to him was to shoot him. In other words, it could be interpreted as give him the gun. Now, you realize that this guy went to jail and he was deemed as wrong. He actually was hanged at the time because in Britain, there was death by hanging. Right? The conviction was quashed after a very long time, a 40-year campaign. Why am I boring you with all of this? It's the chaotic nature of language. And that led to a 40-year campaign. Right, to at the end of the day, we had it being expunged from the common law in Britain, among other issues. So if an attorney general, for that matter, is seen as coming to the forefront, right, using a platform to actually spell out these issues to say, okay, X, Y, Z had happened in this particular case. The fact that he said, I'm going to court next week or next month, and he's unable to go to court, does not mean he's done something wrong.
And he should be explaining that.
No, you can ask for an explanation, and I'm sure he has a tangible explanation to that. Right?
But
because if he didn't...
We shouldn't even wait. You see, so... Hold on. When you make such promises to us, and genuinely they are constraints, it is just fair that in your next briefing, you let us...
I'm sure he's going to come to all of that. Right?
That opportunity to do so yesterday, he did.
I'm sure yesterday was dedicated to a big scandal, responding to the Fourth Estate's investigations, which was very important. Sometimes, in matters of law, of public interest, you don't need a dilution.
I tell you that I'm filing charges against in the NSS matter.
Yes.
I come to talk about the NSS matter. I don't tell you why I have not filed the charges.
No, new evidence could have emerged. There could be some technical delays. There could be procedural errors.
Yeah, so just give us a one-liner.
So now, if he comes
work is still in progress.
Well, I mean,
because of one or two developments,
look, you see,
it hasn't happened.
The office of the AG.
So you proceed to your substantive
the office of the AG
commentary.
Institution. Right? This is fair commentary you are making. And Dr. Ayine, I know, would come out to, give clarity to this. So
he's my professor. So this is nothing, personal.
I'm not saying this.
All of us.
Oh, yeah, but why are you guys now running away?
No. You're not running away. I said this was an improvement over the first.
Some actually have the theory
Yeah.
that if he does all of these things and then comes public, he in that situation he ends up holding himself accountable.
Yes.
So if he says, I'm going to put something on trial because he's done ABC, he will not be able to change that position later. Or that it shuts the door for something to go
behind the scenes,
and try and beg out of the place.
That's
so once he does that, everybody is.
You see, look, he's a public lawyer.
Okay.
He has his legal strategy. This process might be part of his legal strategy, which is not wrong. It's a wrong in law, right? Maybe part of his legal strategy. And Asule,
it is. He said it.
And Asule said, and Asule rightly said, there are some names he was expecting or they were expecting. So this transparent process of him giving these updates. I mean, you and I sitting here had some people who worked at the NSS that we expected, maybe by virtue of XYZ, they should have been part of the list. Why are they not part of the list? Then people like Sule go back to do their investigations.
Okay.
So for me, I see it as more of a very tangible, and we need to encourage more of it as far as transparency and public discourses and public interest cases is concerned. Right? More so to do with oral, where there is heightened public interest. So for me, I really see nothing wrong with it. Whether it's even done in the US, it's done in Ireland, wherever. What he's doing is a novelty that ought to be applauded.
The public actually says the government is slow in prosecuting the oral cases.
That. So if he's coming out to really say this, but we know the wheel of justice, as they always say, you lawyers
grind slowly.
Right, but we ought not to send innocent people to jail, which is why I gave the example of Derek Bentley, among other issues, to actually buttress my point that we are doing this within the confines of the law, and we're having a full appreciation of what is happening. I know Honorable is
propaganda that is leading
eager to get on a political tangent with all of these.
It's pure propaganda.
It's not propaganda. And as a general, a minister of justice is doing his work, and you're referring to it as propaganda.
I've told you here.
Let's not downplay. Let's not downplay a very important national exercise in the name of politics by limiting it to propaganda. This is an AG clothed with the powers of the Constitution to do what
he told us. He's filing charges first.
And that is what he's doing. There's no politics. It is public interest.
Thank you.
But just
and comes back to tell us he's filing charges in
30
July.
seconds.
Yes. You see, I think out of all this investigations and the subsequent activities to follow in court, we should also start asking questions about the way and manner some of our state agencies and institutions operate. We cannot do that exercise and just overlook that angle. For example, the Audit Service or Office of the Auditor General, I'm very clear in my mind that they audit this institution called NSS or NSA, depending on the time, on an annual basis. Did something go wrong?
What goes through the audits? What's accounted for is what the auditor looks at.
Yes, but you see,
what's not accounted for, the auditor will not look
what
at.
they did were not forensic audits, but issues relating to ghost names, head counts, and all of this.
Yes, is the names presented to the auditor that they work with?
No, I work in Kolibu. Even last week, there was a head count. Every year, you go through the head count.
All right.
You go there in person. There should be validation of your NIA card, your pay slips, your promotion letters, and what have you.
Right.
So if you have an area like the National Service where people come in and exit within a short period, I think that there should be a lot more focus, especially when in 2015, 2016, there were issues.
That's right. That's right. And the questions have also come up about this particular company that, Gifty Oware is said to have used the NSS's 30 million as collateral for the loan. So what's it about the bank that gave this particular loan? Didn't he see that this is NSS money and it cannot be used as a collateral for a private entity? Okay, I'm sure in due course we will hear her as well. But Sule, I just wanted you quickly on this one before we take a break and come to the silence frequencies, quote unquote. You are excited that the AG is doing these things and updating the public. You blew the whistle, but there's the potential. Do you think about it or you don't? That the people may be put before court, and in the end, it will turn out to be something else. That they are not guilty, nothing wrong has happened. Are you thinking about that?
Well,
as those who blew the whistle.
I think anything is possible. Sometimes, I mean, I remember when we were doing our MPhil media law, and we're doing defamation. Professor Kumado will give us a scenario. Then we say, we'll do our own analysis to prove whether it is defamatory or not. And then he says, you guys are making one mistake. Why? Because you think English, you think law is English. You know, so anything is possible. But I think what is quite clear is the fact that the national service payroll was bloated, and that there is absolutely no doubt about that.
So you'll be disappointed if things turn around other way?
Well, I mean, if it turns out that, well, yes, the bloating happened, but nobody was a beneficiary, or it wasn't orchestrated by anyone, the monies were being paid to some institutions, and therefore we cannot hold these people accountable. Well, that's at the end of the day, that's what the courts would say. Okay. But I just want to briefly touch on what Dr. Jansen said in terms of how our institutions work. Something, if I'm an auditor and you present me with the figures, yes, I'm supposed to go by the figures. But sometimes you also wonder. So, for example, if in 2022, 2023, it is announced that, or let's look at 2021, 2022, total number of service personnel, 110,324. Then the following year, you are presented with a figure of 179,000. From 110 to 179,000. I think this should be something that should raise some bit of curiosity. What happened? From 110 to 179,000.
So investigation should extend beyond what is going on.
Exactly.
Okay.
And a lot, we had a lot. In fact, we had a contractor who told us that, in fact, the way he was paid was wrong. And he wondered why they did that and why the banks also paid him.
Okay.
Because he said when he presented it, he thought that the banks would have blocked the check that was issued to him.
So we're taking a break here, but there's